Scottsdale home in minutes.
It's totally in flames. It was a big boom. Okay, we'll get somebody right over. There are people in there, and this whole house exploded. Okay, we do have police and fire on the way. Were there people inside the house? Yes, there are. They're probably dead.
When the rescuers could go inside the house, they discovered Mary and her 2 children still in their beds. It seemed like they had passed away while they were sleeping. Everyone was puzzled about what happened, how this explosion started, and who was responsible for this. First and foremost, condolences to the families. Rest in peace to his 2 children and the mother. Let's dive into the case.
45 minutes ago, police came out, and after 2 days of investigating, they said that the scene here is a triple homicide.
In this strange scene, where is the father of their children and that woman's husband? Did he do something, or was he killed before all of this even happened? Did anybody tell him about this explosion? And why didn't he come to the crime scene? Many questions need to be answered, so stay with us until the end to get those answers. Let's dive into the backstory of this case. A big explosion happened in a quiet neighborhood one morning in Scottsdale, Arizona. The blast was so strong that it destroyed a house, making it catch fire. Sadly, the mother, Mary Fisher, 12-year-old Brittany, and 10-year-old Bobby would lose their lives. The house belonged to Robert and Mary Fisher. They lived there with their 2 children. And Robert, who was a Navy veteran, married Mary Cooper in 1987. Over the years, he held various jobs, something like a surgical catheter, a technician, a respiratory therapist, and even a firefighter. Robert was passionate about outdoor activities like hunting and fishing. Despite being described as a strict, somewhat distant father, Robert tried to maintain an image and a devoted family man. In 1998, the Fishers sought marital counseling for their church's senior pastor. During this time, Robert disclosed to his co-workers about having a one-night affair with a prostitute that he met at a massage parlor. He was worried about this encounter, and this actually caused a urinary tract infection that left him ill for several days in December of 2000. Expressing a renewed commitment to his faith and marriage, Robert spoke to a hunting mate, revealing that he could not live without his family. This statement possibly hinted at a complimenting suicide over even facing a divorce.
Part of the difficulty was he had had a difficulty with his parents and the divorce that they'd gone through, and so he had told me he'd never go through that again.
Psychologists noted that an intense fear of loss is not uncommon for someone traumatized by divorce during their adolescence.
And so if there were indications that this marriage may have been coming to some kind of end, and it looks like maybe there were some of those indications, that he really just did not want that to happen, did not want his children to have to live through the kind of divorce-related trauma that he himself had experienced, or his subjective interpretation of what that experience was.
In the weeks leading up to her tragic death, Mary Fisher confided in several friends about her intentions to divorce Robert. A neighbor reported a loud argument between the couple April 9th around 10:30 p.m., approximately 10 hours before the house exploded in an unexpected tragedy. On April 10th, 8:42 a.m., the house had a big explosion. The blast was so strong that it broke in front of the wall and shook nearby houses. Firefighters would rush to the scene. Before they arrived, neighbors tried using garden hoses to control the flames. The firefighters managed to stop the fire from spreading to other houses, but there were smaller explosions happening, maybe from rifle ammo or paint cans being left in the house, so they had to be careful. One firefighter got a minor leg injury. When investigators looked at the bodies, the mom and her 2 kids, it was shocking because they were already dead. Mary Fisher was shot in the back of her head, and Brittany and Bobby's throats were slit from ear to ear. Someone tried to hide the evidence by pulling out the gas line, and later the gas ignited, burning the bodies. When they called their families, it was surprising that Robert William was missing at the time. His phone was off and he didn't show up for many days. This made it look like he might be involved in the murder of his own family. Investigators discovered at 10:43 p.m. Fisher was seen at an ATM camera withdrawing $280 with Mary's Toyota 4Runner in the background.
And there were pictures of him the night before the fire.
It's possible he returned home later to commit murders, but police think that it happened earlier because he used Mary's car to escape. They believe that occurred between 9:30 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. Investigators think that Robert Fisher killed his family because he felt threatened by his wife's plan to be divorced. Despite their marriage troubles, he was determined to not let it end.
They're asleep, and he literally slices their throats to where they're almost beheaded.
I know that Robert and Mary had some problems. Was he controlling?
Let's dive into the investigations. Fisher, the man who vanished when the family tragedy happened, became the main person of interest in the case of April 14, 2001. The Arizona Department of Public Safety told officers statewide to arrest him. On April 20th, the only recent clue about his location was when the police found Mary's Toyota 4Runner in the Tonto National Forest, 100 miles away from Scottsdale. The family dog Blue was there also, hungry and upset, taking cover beneath the car. Inside, they discovered an Oakland Raiders hat like the one Fisher wore in the ATM footage. Strangely, there was human waste near the car's passenger door. Even though police looked around where they found the vehicle, they only searched one cave out of many nearby. Some experts think that Fisher might have used these caves as a hiding spot before escaping on life or succumbing to the low oxygen levels. Professional cavers have explored these caves numerous times since the tragedy, but there has been no sign of Fisher. The mystery of his whereabouts continued.
So my husband thinks now he was up there scouting it while they were camping.
We will be working through the evening.
The Toyota, found less than a mile from the Fort Apache Indian Reservation, an area the police didn't even search. A couple saw a man who looked like Fisher walking along Young Road a few days before they found the car. They waited until after the discovery to report it though. Lori Greenback, who knew the Fisher family, mentioned that her and her husband camped with Fisher in the same area before April 10th. Her husband thought that Fisher was checking out of the place because he knew it so well.
Got a call from a couple that was actually up there a few days before we found the truck, and they were on the old Young Road, and as she passed them, she looked at her husband and said, "That looks like Robert Fisher." So we walked out of there.
They followed the footprints onto the reservation but didn't even find Fisher.
You can't change fingertips. Fingerprints are life.
The crimes Fisher is said to have committed and his subsequent disappearance have grabbed a lot of attention. People have come up with different ideas about what might have happened to him. Some think that he might have taken his own life, maybe in the wilderness where they found Mary's car, and no one has ever found his body. Others think that he might still be alive, maybe starting a new life with a different identity. On July 19th, Phoenix police issued an arrest warrant for Fisher, charging him with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of arson. He was declared a fugitive, and the United States District Court of District of Arizona issued a federal arrest warrant charging him with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution.
Robert Fisher is a murder suspect.
Mr. Fisher is still outstanding.
On June 29th of 2002, the FBI added Fisher to its 10 most wanted list as the 475th fugitive. He was also on the America's Most Wanted Dirty Dozens, a list of its most notorious fugitives, and featured on The Hunt with John Walsh. The FBI offers an award up to $100,000 for any information leading to Fisher's capture. By April 2003, the FBI had hundreds and hundreds of leads, unfortunately all reported sightings of Fisher and have inconclusive or false evidence. The mystery of his whereabouts continued, with authorities actively seeking information to solve the case. After Fisher disappeared, some people in his old neighborhood claimed they saw someone like him driving around. In February of 2004, a guy who seemed a lot like Fisher got arrested in Vancouver, Canada by the Royal Canada Mountain Police. He even had a missing tooth and a back scar like Fisher, but his fingerprints didn't match. Canadian police held him for about a week until a family member correctly identified him. Detective John Kirkham from Scottsdale said there's no sign of fingerprint tampering. Detective John Hazelman suggested he could be living in a small town getting paid in cash, working as a handyman, or he could be in a big city and blend in.
Some unidentified remains that will prove to be Robert Fisher. Maybe he gets picked up or arrested on a different charge and he has a different name.
Some think he crossed the southern U.S. border, especially since the border was less strict before 9/11. And in 2009, an incident in Guatemala involved a man who looked like Fisher, making people wonder if he started a new family. Police fear he might leave and harm a new family, just like he did with the original one. In 2012, the FBI told police that Fisher might be living near where they found Mary's car. In October of 2014, they raided a house in Commerce City, Colorado, based on a tip that he might be hiding there. Even though they arrested 2 people, they didn't find Fisher. In April of 2016, the FBI and Scottsdale police showed new age enhanced pictures of Fisher during a news conference on the 15th anniversary of. That's going to conclude this episode of Sinister Crime Files. I'm D. Ellis. Make sure you guys like, share, comment, subscribe. Condolences to the family. Let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments